Hello, it's Dean Tenney coming from my studio here in fabulous Las Vegas. We're trying to finish up the explication of the FINRA Series 7 content outline. We're in finally made it to function 4. We did 4.1, so we're on 4.2. We have a couple more of these. I'll probably go try and get 4.2, 4.3 knocked out, and that would leave us with 4.3, which is margin. And it probably behooves us to do that separately, not because it's only 2, 3, 4 questions on the test, but that way when I put it in the content outline playlist, it shows up as margin and somebody can find it a little easier. All right, so let's get started on 4.2. Critical function 4, you process and confirm. Remember, there's a sequence to the functions from the test writing committee. Find a customer, open an account, make an investment. Function 3, 91 questions, and here we're in 11% of your exam, about 12 questions in function 4. So information required on the order ticket. Did you see here the symbol, the account number, price? If they're using a market order, the price wouldn't be on the order ticket. It would say market, right? But if they're using a limit order, then they'll tell us what their limit is. As a buyer, their price or less. As a seller, their price or more. Now, sometimes the ticker can look a lot alike. And so if we're not quite sure whether you're talking about ASA, a blue chip mining stock, or ASAA, looks like I got a shadow there, ASAA, we can use the CUSIP. So I would know that each security has its own unique identifying number. And that way we're clear we're talking about the same security. Market makers, roles of the designated market maker. Now, the designated market maker is the guy on the New York Stock Exchange, formerly known as the specialist. And he's the one that's going to hold the limit orders. Remember, the New York Stock Exchange can best be characterized, test question, as an auction order-driven market. And so he has the limit orders. So please note, the quote there on the New York is not being determined by somebody trading from inventory like it is in the over-the-counter markets. It's the buy limits and sell limits that the designated market maker is holding. And that will determine what the quote is and what the size is. That's called the specialist order book. Now, he's going to be allowed to trade, the DMM can trade for his own account in between those prices. He can trade for his own account, let's say at better prices than the limit orders he's holding. That way if somebody complains, I say, well, listen, you're willing to pay 18. I, as a designated market maker, we're going to pay 18.05. Then the limit orders he is holding, or he or she is holding. And sometimes, remember, that's referred to as the inside quote. So you can buy it at higher than the inside bid, highest bid, or you can sell it at lower than the ask. That benefits the customer, by the way, by narrowing the spread in the auction. Listing requirements, I wouldn't worry about that. You join me for a 24. We'll talk about that. Significant market declines, just memory work. I would know the market declines on the New York that we're going to, put in what are called circuit breakers, or it's based on this S&P. 7% is 15 minutes. We go down 13%, another 15 minutes. And then 20 minutes, we call it a day and say maybe tomorrow will be better. Very important to know the principal versus agency transactions. So we're all called broker dealers, but in any one trade, we're either going to be a broker or a dealer. Principal and dealer are synonymous. And so when the broker dealer is acting in its principal dealer capacity, it's going to charge a markup or a markdown. And you're trading against the customer. A markup the customer is buying or a markdown if the customer is selling. And then remember, agency, we're acting on behalf of the customer. And so in agency transactions, we're going to charge commission. Quotations, we've talked about the different types of quotations. And remember, the quotation on the New York is based on the limit orders that the designated market maker is holding. But the quotation in the over-the-counter markets is going to be based on whatever, I'm willing to buy or sell into my inventory. And so buying or selling it in my inventory would be what the quote would be. And all quotes are considered firm for at least 100 shares. So if I'm a market maker in a NASDAQ pink sheet or bulletin board stock, an over-the-counter stock, and I give you a bid of 15 and an ask of 1505, unless I say differently, unless I'm displaying size, that would be my size, and I would have to honor that size. Let me give some size here. Let's say it's a 10 by 10. That would be 10 round lots, 100 shares. So I'm willing to buy 1,000 shares in my inventory, and I'm willing to sell 1,000 shares out of my inventory. And then very test, remember, if I don't honor that quote, very test, that's called backing away. That's what I fail to honor, whatever quote I'm displaying. Now, if I say I think I'm trading it at, so their version of week said that's considered firm. Subject would be subject to qualification, and that's where I give you some kind of qualification where I say, well, I think I'm trading it at like 15. I'm coming back from lunch. If I use that kind of language, qualified language, I don't give you a bid and ask. I don't give you size. That means subject to confirmation. You will say, well, Dean, get your butt in your chair and give me a quote. Offer size obligation. I just told you about size obligation. That is testable. We had a guy who got so mad at us in the NASDAQ marketplace. His name was Mr. Manning. And sometimes we call these the Manning rules. The Manning rules are about limit order protection for customers. We have what are called limit order protection rules. Behind every rule, there's a story. And what I used to do is if you told me as a customer that you wanted to buy the share, 100 shares at 18, I would say, pretend I don't have your order. And then what I would do is I'd wait till I actually got the stock for myself at like 17 and fill you 18. It beats working for a living. And so what the order handling rules say, what the Manning rules say is that if I'm holding a customer buy limit or sell limit, I can't trade at a lower price than the limit, or lower price on the sell side, higher price on the asking side. Trade at a price that isn't better than my customers. Can't trade. Let me just get this cleaned up here. Can't trade. What's the proper word to say that? It's a buy limit. I can't trade below the limit. Can't trade below the customer limit. Or I can't trade above the customer buy limit. Customer buy limit or above the customer sell limit. But that means I have to trade at better prices than the customer's order that I'm holding. So, my customer wants to buy 18. Let's see, below, above. Let me just clean this up. I think the easiest way to say this is if I'm going to trade, I have to trade at a better price than the limit order I'm holding. That's the better way to say it. And I have to trade for my own account, my own inventory as a principal, let's say as a dealer principal. At a better price than the limit order I'm holding. Now, the reason I bring that up is because even after we pass the Manning rules, limit order protection rules, what I would do is I'd make up some timeline where it looks like I'm okay. So, I tell the FINRA, I say, well, no, it looks like I did something bad. Yes, I was holding a customer buy limit at 18, and I did buy it from my own inventory at 16. Before we had this rule, by the way, that's what I would do. And then I film at 18, make 2 points. Beats working for a living. I said, but that's not what happened. I received that limit order at 9:15, and I had bought the stock at 8:45. And so, yeah, I did buy it for myself at 8:45, but I didn't have that limit order at the time. To prevent me from doing that, and making up my own timeline. We establish what's called OATS, the Order Audit Trail System. And this tracks NASDAQ. By the way, the New York guys didn't get in trouble. So, they have I shouldn't say this probably, but they have there's less shenanigans on the New York Stock Exchange than there are in the over-the-counter markets. But anyways, we did OATS, and it trades NASDAQ orders. NASDAQ orders from acceptance to execution. And, that'll prevent me from making up this timeline. They say, well, Dean, OATS shows differently. OATS shows that you received the customer buy limit at 18 at, 8:45, and then you bought it for yourself at 16 at 8:47, and then you fill them at 8:50. And so hopefully that OATS will help have more transparency. Now, if you get this as a test question, these various things we're talking about are usually like A, B, C, D. And so TRACE is for debt securities. We're trying to drive the bond guys into the modern marketplace. In stocks, we report in 10 seconds, but, bond guys report in 15 minutes and they go, 15 minutes, I just can't do it. So, TRACE is for debt securities. It's a dual side reporting, and that means both. It's the only reporting system here where both sides report to the to TRACE, the buy side and the sell side. And you have 15 minutes to report. As I mentioned, this would be like A, B, C, D if you get it. And then, the MSRB was collecting a lot of money and not doing anything with it. And so they decided to come up with, spend some of it on this beautiful thing called EMMA. And that stands for Electronic Municipal Market Access. It's got all kinds of great stuff, official statements, information, all that kind of stuff. So main question again is that one is for municipal bonds. And then trade reporting facilities just report NASDAQ trades that take place, off the exchange somewhere else. NASDAQ trades elsewhere. And I don't think you'll get that one. I think it just might be a distractor in the answer set. NASDAQ trades elsewhere. Okay, delivery requirements. Delivery requirements isn't getting a pizza in 30 minutes or less. Good delivery is making sure the securities are in the proper deliverable form. So again, this has nothing to do with customer. Customer gives me any kind of delivery, I say thank you very much. But in the back office, we know we're going to have to fix this thing. And so, I say thank you very much. So certificates in possession of the seller. Until the seller delivers the securities, we talked about this in a previous explication, we have a failed to deliver, right? And that's, a problem because, the buy side wants us to deliver this stock. So if it's the name of two persons, they both have to sign. We don't accept owner signatures of persons now deceased. I would definitely know that a stock or a bond power is assignment to transfer separate from the certificate. So, if you blow it and you send it to me, I say, well, I don't want to send it back to you because, I've already got to I want to make delivery. So I say, hey, sign this stock or bond power, I'm back in business. Or I might do it for security reason. I might say, hey, don't make the certificate fully negotiable. Leave it blank and then give me a bond or stock power assignment. I'm not sure why it won't go red for me. Let's see. Come on. I'm going to give it one more try. And if it doesn't go to a different color, I'm just going to leave it as is. There we go. Assignment to transfer separate from the certificate. Mutilated certificates, test question. Mutilated certificates, I would know have to be authenticated. And who can authenticate? What we're talking about, by the way, is the Uniform Practice Code rules of good delivery. And under the Uniform Practice Code rules of good delivery, we don't accept signatures of persons now deceased. We have signatures both parties have to sign. If it's not signed technically correct, that would be another reason for stock or bond power. Signatures have to be technically correct. These certificates have to be authenticated. And who can give us a letter of validation where the buying broker or dealer must accept? Again, this has nothing to do with the customers. We're talking about the back office or support unit here. Authentication letter can be provided by the transfer agent or the issuer. So, if I have this and the buying broker dealer has to give me my money, has to settle up with me. Again, customer gives me a mutilated, coffee stained, dog-eared certificate. I say thank you very much. Due bills. As you recall from your earlier studies, a X date is the day before the record date. And somebody who buys the stock the day before the X is supposed to get that dividend. And you think every once in a while we screw it up and somebody who buys the stock and should have been on the record date wasn't and doesn't get the dividend he was entitled to. So on trades just prior to the X date, we'll have a due bill and we'll tell the buyer that if we screw it up, we know they're supposed to get the dividend. So a due bill is an IOU to a buyer for the dividend on trades just prior to the X date. There's no way to, mess this up after the X date or X date or after X date or future, right? IOU to the buyer for the dividend on trades just prior to the X date. Remember, X is Latin for without. We talked about RVP and DVP. We said delivery versus payment or receipt versus payment. I think we've talked about this elsewhere. And you have up to 35 calendar days to get that done. It's not going to take me 35 calendar days as the selling broker dealer because I want my money and I want it now. We have certain securities that trade book entry, meaning there is no certificate to deliver. And so book entry would be for primarily treasury securities. And a lot of state GOs trade that way. Stock certificates, the endorsements, I kind of hinted at that one. We said that stock certificate, it can be signed, but we said endorsements have to be technically correct. So endorsement signatures have to be technically correct. And they have to be guaranteed. Oop. I'm just going to leave that. I'll get my different color now. Signatures have to be guaranteed. And they have to be guaranteed by somebody with a medallion stamp. So not just anybody can do it. What we mean by that is we don't recognize on the Uniform Practice Code notaries. So customers get confused about this all the time. Oh, I'll go see my notary. Nah, we don't accept that. Denominations for whatever the bond is some funky denomination. We said bearer. I think we talked about that before. And we said bearer is if you're in physical possession, you're presumed to be the owner. We don't have any securities anymore that are bearer securities, but that used to be pretty popular. And in international markets, they still have bearer securities. I wouldn't worry about direct registration system. When you could trade securities before they are there, I don't think nobody's seen that in years. X rights, X remembers when it's no longer trading with the debt attached. So we have two versions of rights. We have cum rights and we have X rights. Cum is Latin for with. So cum rights versus X rights. I haven't anybody tell me they've had to actually do the calculation of the theoretical value of a right in years. But like I say, if you see something, say something. We talked about due bills, negotiated settlement just being the back office. We can, figure out something that works for everybody. And then don't know means don't know the trade. So, the purchase and sales department is the one in charge of matching trades. And sometimes the trades don't match. If they don't match, then we're going to get decayed. Again, this has nothing to do with customer. And then we try and figure out why we're not matching. Like I say, I know a sell of 500 shares of IBM at, X. And you say, I know a sell, we should match up, buy and sell. So most of it's done by computers nowadays, but. All right. So we talked about that. So I told you we're trying to get this knocked out. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up here with 4.3. Informs the appropriate supervisor, key word, supervisor, and resolution of discrepancies, disputes, and errors. And I told you that I had I probably, I think I said this, who knows? I'm doing a lot of these explications because we have somebody who's been a loyal subscriber to the channel and supported my social media efforts. So I'm trying to knock these out before he tests Monday. So I'm doing this at a little bigger pace than I usually go at in terms of lectures. So that being said, if I sound like I'm losing it, maybe, maybe I'm telling you I've talked about it, and maybe I haven't. But I had a young lady and she asked me about errors and reports versus error and execution. And there is a big distinction between an error and report where I accidentally could tell the customer an error report that he, bought the stock at 18, and I call you back and say, hey, Joe, I thought it was 18, but it was 1805. Now, if that happens too often, Joe's going to be looking for a new broker. But an error and report, the customer is obligated or liable. Error in execution, the broker dealer is liable. Anyways, she told me she actually saw it. So I've been commenting through the explication. I haven't seen it in years, but if you see something, say something. She passed and called me. She actually saw it. So, probably good thing she asked me about it. Error report is obligated. Error in execution, broker dealer is liable. We can do cancels and rebills. That's one thing we do when we have a don't know. We maybe agree, negotiated. That's what that means to negotiate. I say, well, listen, let's split the difference and settle this thing up and get on with our lives. You say, 15, I know 15, 10, let's call it 1505, settle up and get on with our lives. Customer complaints, all written customer complaints must be handled by a supervisor. So all written customer complaints must be handled by a supervisor. Complaints, let me get a different color. Complaints are a 4-year record of the broker dealer. And we file our complaints quarterly with FINRA unless there's a sense of urgency, unless the complaint is a customer saying, I'm making fraudulent conversion of their funds or something like that. Handled by a supervisor. And then remember I just told you it's a 4-year record. And we file quarterly with FINRA. And then remember, improper handling can get you in trouble as a broker. All new account forms have an arbitration clause, and it tells the customer he has problems with this, he's going to take us to arbitration. Now, on the test, they make it sound like the customer can opt out of that, but if he doesn't, if he does, we're not opening the account. So it's kind of catch-22. That's also on your U4. You've agreed that if you have problems with your broker dealer, you will take them to arbitration. So that's on both. Now, some states require mediation. So if we're conducting business in a state that has mediation, well, then we do mediation, which is arbitrate before we go to arbitration. Mediation is not adversarial, whereas arbitration is. So this isn't a lecture about arbitration panels and the process of arbitration. It's just what's in the content outline about how we resolve, discrepancies, disputes, errors, and complaints. And then remember litigation. Now, it's going to be very hard for a customer litigate because of that arbitration clause, but there are certain things that arbitration does not cover, particularly on your U4. Doesn't cover HR problems. It's, broker problems, right? Those kind of problems, you still have all the rights you would have working for any other kind of a firm. So it's about civil disputes. And then Form U4 reporting means that some of these complaints will be reported. If it's serious enough, it'll go on your U4, and who knows, it might even show up on broker check. But that U4, we have 30 days. If it is become a something that was a no answer, and now it's a yes answer, you have to amend that U4 within 30 days. And I can't tell you how many people I've seen get in trouble for not amending that thing. Amendments. So if this dispute escalates to a point at which it's a part of a yes answer on a U4, becomes part of broker check, that would have to be done within 30 days. Okay. I would tell you again, we're just doing an intellectual inventory here. So, you're not solid on some of these issues. That's what the explication is about of the content outline, that you can go back to your study materials and say, hey, I think I better dig in a little deeper on this. This isn't a substitute for lectures, as I always say. And this leaves us with, oh my goodness, we are at 4.4. The last explication of the FINRA content outline is margin. And I might do that tomorrow. So it's up for our friend Joe. I may or may not. He gave me permission to take a break. He said, Dean, you're sounding a little tired. I said, I am. So I'm not used to working for for a living. I'm a semi-retired kind of broker type, so starting to look a little bit like work. Anyways, like, share, any questions, put in the comment box. Pretty good about that. If there's a premiere, I'm not premiering these because I'm putting them immediately up for somebody who's testing next week. But usually we premiere things and there's a live Q&A chat. And subscribe to the channel so you don't miss that. And we're getting very, very, very close to a community page, which would be kind of cool, right? So you also can find us. I'm the moderator of a Reddit subreddit called R Series 7. And that's another place you can find me. If you have any questions, you want to remain anonymous, that's a nice place to do that as well. Okay, I'll see you on the next and last explication of the Series 7.